the ultimate political rug pull happening right now, even in 2026. We need to talk about the grand theater that just played out in your states like California and New York, leading up to the exact 2026 election cycle. Because a lot of these deep blue states, they set up reparation task forces. The politicians held massive press conferences. They parade Black leaders in front of the cameras. They spend millions of taxpayer dollars to study the effects of redlining, mass incarceration, and chattel slavery. So let me be very clear. I asked a task force, right? A task force is just a political waiting room where tangibles go to die. We see it each and every time. We lobby, we go about the administration, we go about things the right way as it pertains to reparations, and they die. We didn't need a multi-year study to tell us that foundational Black Americans have been systematically locked out of the wealth of this nation. But also they set up these task forces for one specific reason: to stall. They're going to literally stall us to death. They use the promise of a future payout to secure 90% of the Black American voting bloc for the last major election without actually having to cut a single check. How many times they're going to make promises and how many times they're going to break them? Now that we are in 2026 and the bill has come due, suddenly a lot of politicians found a brand new script. Suddenly California is facing a historic 2026 budget deficit. Suddenly New York says they have to be fiscally responsible. That's what New York is stating. As we head to the polls this year, they looked at the Black community and said, we acknowledge the harm. We know that you guys have been through so much, but we just don't have the money right now. Best we can do is an official state apology and maybe a plaque downtown. The empty apologies. You know, we live in a capitalist society. That's what they keep telling me. We live in a tangible society. Nothing means nothing without the transfer of wealth. You get cut off on the freeway, you get into an accident, you sue the other person. We live in a capitalist society. Everything that is of value exchanges through some sort of money. That's just the way it is. Because if we truly check the ledger, because the math is insulting to me. How is it mathematically possible that a lot of these state governments are completely broke when it comes to repaying the descendants of the people who built the state's agriculture and infrastructure well-free? And believe me, I'm not celebrating, I'm not bragging on it. I wish it would have never happened. What would America be without hundreds of years of free labor? I don't think we should tap our chest on what our ancestors and what we are going through and what they have built. No. I think the hard truth is that we lost something there. Because somehow they have a really bottomless bank account when it comes to illegal immigration or immigration in general. Maybe I'm the only one watching this.
Create a reparations bureau in the state civil rights department, a system for determining who's eligible and other financial supports. Cheryl Grills is a member of the state's reparations task force.
We uncovered so much that it led to an 1,100-page report with 115 recommendations for repair.
After that report, Governor Gavin Newsom formally apologized for California's role in slavery and racism. Grills says the public's trust is now at stake. If he vetoes these bills,
it would smack of dishonesty, right? Because on one hand, you're saying, yes, something happened and we need to understand it to its fullest extent, and then we need to address it. And so you say that on one hand, and so then when we point out everything and then nothing is done, how can I trust you? How can I trust government?
The legislature estimated it could cost anywhere from tens to hundreds of millions of dollars to create and run the Reparations Bureau at a time when California is running a budget deficit in the billions. To people who say the state can't afford it, Grill says,
If not now, when? We're going to always have budget challenges. And thank God no one said that when they were trying to advance ending enslavement.
she says if the governor vetoes the bills,
We're going to keep at it. You know, like that Energizing battery commercial from back in the day? We're going to keep going and going and going until we receive true repair.
Katie Hyson.
Congratulations to that sister. And I told you guys this, the fight, I don't think will ever end in my lifetime. Do I believe that I will receive reparations? No. Do I believe that I will receive reparations on a state level in my lifetime? No. Do I believe I will receive reparations on the federal level in my lifetime? No. But that doesn't mean that we stop fighting, because again, some people may feel as though the fight for reparations is a dead end street, and I can understand that because we don't see an end. But our ancestors never stopped fighting. So again, neither should we, because they're treating Black Americans like the landlord and like the new arrivals, okay, or like the shiny new girlfriend. They're looking us dead in our eye, telling us they can't pay the rent that they owe, while we are watching them take the new girlfriend out, right? Illegal immigrants, that is. Taking out, I'm just using a metaphor here. Taking out the new girlfriend to a $500 steak dinner on our dime. Because when you look at it from 2023 right up to this year, states like New York and California projected and spent billions to house illegal immigrants in luxury hotels and provide prepaid debit cards and fund legal services so they can have a fast track to citizenship. But when the Reparations Task Force asked for localized economic grants for Black American business owners, we heard absolutely nothing. The state is broke. That's what they said. They said the state is broke.
$286 billion budget, and a big topic in the plan is expanded health care.
And News Channel reporter Karen Cruz-Adunia joins us live from Santa Maria tonight with a reaction to that plan.
Beth and CJ, with this multi-billion-dollar plan, Governor Gavin Newsom plans to expand healthcare coverage to all low-income Californians.
Full scope Medi-Cal, including long-term care, IHSS, behavioral health to all low-income Californians, regardless of immigration status.
Governor Gavin Newsom is aiming to expand healthcare.
Wait 1 second. Did you guys hear that? Regardless of immigration status. So illegal immigrant is still a status. Undocumented immigrant is still a status. So whether they're an asylum seeker, a refugee, illegal, whatever it may be, California is covering it.
Earlier this week, he announced a proposed $286 billion budget that expands healthcare coverage to low-income Californians, including undocumented immigrants.
We said we're going to do it. We said it would take a few years. We're committed to doing it.
He said the cost of this plan is approximately $2.2 billion. This healthcare plan does bring some controversy locally. Some of them say that this isn't a good plan, as many undocumented people could possibly come over to California just to benefit from this healthcare plan, while others say it's a good idea, as finally all low-income Californians could possibly have some coverage to some healthcare.
Of course, you're going to run to California for free healthcare. Of course they will. Because this brings me to the psychological warfare of the buffer class. Whenever the Black community rightly points out this massive hypocrisy, right? This massive hypocrisy that we're showing here. Who do the Democrats send out to quiet us down? They send out no other than the Black gatekeepers. They send out a Black mayor, a Black pastor, a member of the Congressional Black Caucus to wag their fingers at us, to get your Poland Martins. You dumb black people, you vote for the Democrats. They the best thing since sliced bread. And these gatekeepers will tell us now is the time to be decisive. We must protect our democracy. They tell you that demanding what they owe is somehow helping the Republicans. Let me tell you, let me give you guys a weighting scale. Maybe you need to see it. Hold on. So if we were weighing the economic status of majority of Black Americans in one hand under the Democrats, and the same thing on the right hand with the Republicans, can I tell you how it will look? So here is higher than here. I'm making a point here. So Black people under the Democrats, our wealth has been right here. Black Americans' wealth under the Republicans, our wealth has been right here, meaning that there's been no systematic change for us. There's been no systematic change for us. Then some people equate, well, the opportunities under the Democrats usually increases. Then I will give you the numbers and statistics, and it will show that that is invalid. They're really paid a healthy salary to absorb our anger and ensure that we keep voting against our own economic interests. They want us to accept a very symbolic victory, an apology, while they hand tangible wealth to someone who got here yesterday. It amazed me on a state level, on a federal level, the different budgets they have. And they state that we don't have any money, right? We don't have any money in this particular budget. Oh, well, that budget is for the infrastructure. We can't use that money, but somehow, especially with the Democrats, how they can now reallocate funds for special interests. They keep wanting us to really accept these symbolic victories through apologies, while they give other people tangible resources and tangible wealth. And my prediction is based on the evidence, not on conjecture. Because if you pay close attention to what I'm really talking about here and telling you guys, watch the language they use as they pivot after these 2026 midterms. They're going to attempt the ultimate bait and switch. They will take the findings of the FBA Reparations Task Force and they will launder it through BIPOC. You guys know what BIPOC mean, right? Black, Indigenous, and people of color. That means everybody. Even white people can be part of BIPOC. And they will create a minority wealth fund or some sort of equity grant program that completely erases the specific lineage of American slavery. By doing this, they will allow the children of very immigrants, illegal and legal, just to subsidize rather, and apply for the funds that on the surface was supposed to be meant for us. They will totally dilute our claim until it disappears completely. And again, I'm just pointing out a couple of issues and problems, but I don't think it's good to point them out without at least some sort of solutions and or strategies. Not that you may agree. We have to stop falling for the task force trap. A study is not a policy, as we all well know. An apology is not a tangible. Black Americans, we must form highly focused single issue state PACs, those political action committees. I thought about it because AIPAC, Jewish ran, they're highly effective. Now, AIPAC got millions of dollars to throw around and play with, but I stated in another video, I believe that every Black American has $20. What if every Black American over the age of 18 donated $20 to a political action committee, also known as a PAC? And we filed class action lawsuits against these states for equal protection violations when they fund non-citizens over native-born citizens. And most importantly, we must excuse me, we must have a primary of any Black politician who runs cover for the establishment. Because that's what they do. They just parade Black faces in front of Black people, and we be like, yeah, that's good. We're going to vote for them. Yeah. Because if a candidate cannot say lineage-based tangibles, then I know some people are either going to vote for the other side or they're going to sit there on the couch. Shut the machine down until the check clears. Because if you really look at it, the cause of the migrant crisis versus reparations from the onset of the crisis through 2026, states like New York and California projecting to spend billions of dollars collectively on shelter, healthcare, services for newly arrived immigrants, while simultaneously citing historic budget deficit. I don't understand why you would give people money and provide resources when the state is about to be bankrupt. I don't understand that. There must be a bigger play. And just for them to reject direct cash payments recommended by their own state-sanctioned reparation task force. But they have billions of dollars for people who are legally in the country. I don't know another country like it, unless the strategy of the Democrats is not about helping people who are on the surface are in need, even though that we know that majority of them are here for economic opportunities. They come from all around the world, and majority of them pass through the country of Mexico. Not all of them are Mexican. Not all of them are even from Central America. They come from Asia. They come from all over the world. But that's the main port of entry. Why would they do that? Why would they allocate billions of dollars that works against their own interests when it comes to the state budget being in a deficit, unless they had a bigger ploy at hand? I wonder, and I'm just guessing, I don't know, to increase their voting block for Democrats. Because as a lot of Black Americans, not many, but more than historical records show, or, oh yeah, they don't got the money for us, but they got all the money for them. Absolutely. They absolutely do. Because they will dilute our claims until it disappears completely. And of course, I always propose a lot of the issues and problems in politics as it pertains to Black Americans. But the one thing I tend not to do is not give solutions, give different strategies. Not if people agree or not, but just have someone to think about things. We have to stop falling for the task force trap. A study is not a policy, as we all well know. An apology is not a tangible. Black Americans, we must form highly focused, single issue state PACs, those political action committees. Just like an APAC, we don't have that amount of money because they had just millions of dollars to play with. But what if every Black American donated $20 to create our own PAC? $20. I would do it. I would do it twice. And we filed class action lawsuits against these states for equal protection violations when they fund non-citizens over native-born citizens. And most importantly, we must, have a primary for any Black politician and point them out if they try to cover for the establishment. If a candidate cannot say lineage-based tangibles, that's going to have most Black people to vote the other side or to sit on the couch. But either way, that's how you shut the machine down until the check clears. Because if you really look at the cause of the illegal immigrant crisis versus reparations from the onset of the crisis through or till this year, rather, states like New York and California projecting to spend billions of dollars collecting on shelter, collecting, if they was in shelters or not, healthcare and services for newly arrived immigrants, while simultaneously citing historic budget deficits. But to really reject direct cash payments that was actually recommended by their own state-sanctioned reparation task force that they helped to build. And then they always, they have, all these different terminologies they've really used to dilute the black vote, the BIPOC dilution strategy. Political and economic analysis have really documented how broad equity initiatives, often labeled under DEI or these BIPOC umbrellas. And we all know, even though we've already proven with evidence, and people have been citing it all over the internet by the Department of Labor, stated that the majority of people who benefited from DEI was white women, white men, Hispanics, and then last, Black Americans. But anytime you try to say that, they think you're lying because they see a black man in a BMW. They're like, well, he driving a BMW. Like, what? Bank of America gave me that loan. And we have routinely failed to really close the wealth gap because of these systematic barriers. And as the funds are disproportionately accessed by recent illegal immigration population and white women, rather than the descendants of U.S. chattel slavery for whom the term civil rights was originally coined, even though everybody benefited from civil rights. We had to have civil rights because this country was not upholding the Constitution. Think about it. If the 14th Amendment gave Black American citizenships and rights, then why in the hell in 1960s that we need housing acts and civil rights act and voting rights legislation? Is to strengthening what they already put on paper in the 14th Amendment. The history of symbolic politics. I want you guys to think about this because I've been thinking about this for a very long time. Not that I should be some sort of political strategist, but I don't think a lot of these people, don't get me wrong, I believe a lot of these people are very, very intelligent, very smart. But that's the problem. Some of them are so smart, they're dumb. You heard that before, right? Because they think about these large, massive things. And I thought about one single thing. Because if we go back to 2009, the U.S. Congress passed a resolution apologizing for slavery and Jim Crow. But they explicitly included language stating that the apology could not be used to support claims for restitution, meaning AKA reparation. Look it up. 2009, Congress passed a resolution apologizing for slavery and Jim Crow, but they explicitly included language stating that the apology cannot be used for reparations, for restitution. And we know why they did that, because that apology means nothing if we can't take them to court about it. You see that? Because we will have to sue the federal government. So that's why they put that language in there. And guess what? If I'm a Republican, if I'm an independent, if I'm a Democrat, especially a Democrat, right? Because on the surface, they always charter to black folk, but never really comes through any resources or tangibles. But guess what I would do? I wouldn't promise reparations. I wouldn't promise resources. I would say, hey, listen, back in 2009, this country apologized for the descendants of slavery right here in America. Black Americans, descendants of slaves. And in that apology, Congress put in language So Black Americans couldn't use this apology as a foundation for a lawsuit for reparations. So we know how difficult it has been to pass reparations legislation as it pertains to Black Americans. So Black Americans, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to erroneously delete that language. I'm not going to reword it, but the explicit language that prevents Black Americans for using the apologies as claims for restitution, I'm going to delete it. And then I'm gonna have a little slush fund and provide this a couple of $100,000 for people to use that money and get the best lawyers and take that to the Supreme Court. That easy. But don't forget, this administration that we're currently in, they came out and stated that, no, we're not going to do reparations because during the time it was legal. They're right. It was legal. That doesn't mean that it wasn't wrong. The same thing that you did to the so-called Native Americans, it was legal during that time too, but this country still gives reparations to the Native Americans. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to mess up their money. Okay, I'm not pocket watching just a little bit. I'm not going to even get into that conversation because they deserve it. Let's just say they deserve it. I'm not going to even get into a debate about it. And I don't want to tout my chest that my ancestors built this and we did that and we invented this. We already know. We don't got to go through those things over and over again. No. We know these things already. But again, if I was a Democrat running for president, I would do my Chitlin circuit. I would go to all the Black churches, all the Black areas that I need to win. And that's the story that I would give them. I'm going to put a little bit of money where my mouth is, and I'm going to change legislation. I'm going to delete it. I'm not going to reword it. I'm just going to delete it. And then you guys can use that apology to go to the Supreme Court and sue the federal government for reparations. You guys take it from here. Because think about it. If we look at all the so-called Black politicians that mention reparations, they never made it. They never made it. They never made it. We have to think about strategies, ladies and gentlemen. Because it would be easy if a Republican came out and they said, you know what? I'm giving foundational Black Americans, American descendants of slavery, those Black Americans who've been here since slavery and beyond, I'm giving them cash payment reparations. Now, I wonder, out of all the Black Americans we have, 40 million plus, how many of them will be like, I ain't vote for no Republican? They're going to sign bills and legislation for cash payment reparations. Nah, they're going to trick us. Well, we've been tricked 60 years by the Democrats. Can we at least get tricked by the Republicans a couple of times? Can we get tricked by the Republicans a couple of times? And I'm not, again, I know a lot of times people may think I'm trying to push them Republican. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. But the reason why I do this is because the GOP never really talks about it. They totally ignore it. I respect that to a certain degree. We're not going to even deal with it. The problem is when somebody keep promising or talking to you and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. That's the hurtful part. But for some reason, we're not hurt enough because we keep falling for it. The establishment has a long history of offering symbolism to avoid economic tangibles. That is why a PAC is so important. Do you know what $20 per 40 million Black Americans? Think about that. I mean, we would never be that organized and that unified. No group is. No group is that unified. Not Asians, not Hispanics, where the entire population is. No. Everybody have different views, but 25%. Think about our power. I just want you guys to think about our power when it comes to that.
Advocates say cutting free health care to illegal immigrants will have a ripple effect, doing more harm than good.
Across the spectrum, the impacts are just being felt and haven't yet fully being felt.
Governor Newsom took aim at the Trump administration, saying some of his proposed cuts are the result of economic uncertainty, including federal tariff policies. Today, he outlined his revised $321 billion state budget proposal for the 2025-26 fiscal year. A number of cuts are included, including freezing enrollment in a state-funded healthcare program for immigrants living in California without legal status. That one in particular is drawing criticism from immigration rights advocates.
It's unfortunate that Governor Newsom is looking for a scapegoat, and that scapegoat being the most vulnerable population group, migrants.
Pedro Rios with American Friends Service Committee fears without health care, more people will get sick and diseases will spread more easily. He argues despite their status, illegal immigrants deserve the same dignity and respect as others.
Migrants in the state of California are part of an important workforce that many people are unwilling to do, and that they pay taxes, and that they are valuable members of our community in every respect.
It is actually an attack on us.
Miriam Perez agrees. She's a community health worker who connects immigrants and refugees with resources, including healthcare.
We understand that there's inflation and other things going on, but we need to really invest in our communities, and especially when the governor needs the support of immigrants, he needs to also show up for us.
Under Newsom's plan, low-income.
I wanted to point out something here because, you know, the guy who seems to be in politics keep calling the immigrants migrants, right? And I think context matter, right? Etymology of words, et cetera, et cetera. So I want to show you guys this very quickly, right? This so we understand the major difference here. Immigrants move to a new country permanently. So again, that's why we say illegal immigrants, not illegal migrants. While migrants are individuals who move within a country or internationally, often for temporary, seasonal, or economic reasons. So I could be a migrant in my own country, right? I'm originally from DC, but now I live in California. I migrated from DC to California, but they're used these words interchangeably like they mean the same thing. No. Immigrant means you're from a totally different country and you move to another country. A migrant, you either move within your country or abroad, but temporarily. And believe me, none of these people are moving here temporarily. I'll read some of your comments here. Lonely Therapy states that Andy's Orthodox Jews are still in black homes in New York and New Jersey. I heard about that. And they're taking up the homes. Yep. They're taking back homes in New York. Yep. So again, this is not about releasing a lot of hot air. This is about, I'm turning on really a new leaf about the way I present this information to you guys and how we should go about, because anyone we can keep describing and talking about the issues within our community, within our our black collective, so to speak. And we know that not everybody's going to have the same mindset about how we should go about things, but I think strategies need to be adopted, right? Strategies need to be adopted. You know, when I'm talking to some friends, some loved ones, some family members, even if I change 3 or 4 people about the way we should move forward, and you change 3 or 4 people the way we should move forward, there will be progress. But hey, we did this and we did that, and they don't this and they don't. It's not been working. We're in these echo chambers talking to each other and not talking to the people who are going to actually make change. Now, we know we have tether politicians who are up there just spinning wheels. We have the black Democratic shills up there, just a good face, but they're going to do the bidding of their political slave masters. We understand all of this. So either we can fatten the pockets and actually make change the way these other groups have done with these crooked politicians, or we really start to support homegrown politicians with our dollar. Because think about it, if they're running for office, especially a big office like the Senate or the presidency, right? Being the governor of a state, They're going to have to quit their job if they're going to effectively campaign. And if they quit their job, there needs to be money coming in for them to take care of their family and to handle a lot of their political liabilities. That's going to take money. So that's why we look at all these other groups, because they're putting their money where their mouth is. And I'm not saying, hey, every month give $100. No, I think, well, let me speak for myself. Every month I can give a political candidate $10. Every month I can give a political candidate $20. And I would like to believe majority of Black Americans can too. Again, the strategies of just talking, how they're spinning our wheels, trying to depend on a lot of these Democratic and Republican shields that cater to us verbally every 2 to 4 years, is not working. But when I look at these other demographics of people, they're putting their money where their mouth is. And a lot of these politicians are signing legislation, support their group, because guess what? They want their money again. They want to be in power again. If we're just standing over here talking, like, when you get in there, you better be signing legislation. You better, okay, yeah, I hear everything you guys are saying, but where's your support? Man, we support you. No, that's not how you support politicians. By saying we support you. That's verbal. At least for your kids, you go to their football, basketball, hockey games, right? They see you there. You're giving them support. Go, Johnny, go. But when it comes to politicians, they want that money.